Great rewards don't wait, so why should you? Through the Invigor Book and Buy Grower program, you could earn a $30 per bag rebate when you book all of your Invigor hybrid canola by November 14th. Talk to your retailer. Terms and conditions apply.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to this Agronomic Monday here on RealAg Radio. It is September 15th and I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. It's wonderful to chat with you here. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Perhaps harvest is in full gear where you are. Maybe you're waiting patiently for the next crop to be ready. Either way, there's lots to unpack on today's show. Peter Repeat Johnson is back after a few weeks off from the show. Don't worry, he's been very busy collecting your biggest Q&A. And so today I want to know all about winter wheat decisions because, of course, we are approaching the ideal window for putting winter wheat in the ground here in Ontario, other areas as well, even in Western Canada. But if you've got super dry conditions, that poses definitely some challenges. So we'll tackle that. Also, there's reports of very oddly colored crops out there, some purpling happening. What is it? So we'll tackle that. Also on today's show, though, you're going to hear a fascinating discussion about the role of zinc and boron in the soybean crop. So Tobin brings that report with Horst Bohner and Dr. Hugh Earl from the University of Guelph talking about the role of these two micronutrients and where we may see deficiencies. It's a really cool project, so we'll hear all about that. And then to round out the show, Amber Bell is on location with Jack Payne out in the field talking fall soil sampling, talking about planting fertility, of course, for 2026. It feels a bit strange to be saying that, but of course, as one harvest wraps up, we are always planning for the next seeding and planting season. Without further ado, of course, let's get to today's show. But if you've got any story ideas, leads, or feedback, we always appreciate getting in touch. We had lots of feedback from Friday's show. Really appreciate each and every one of you who reached out, offered your thoughts, had follow-up questions, etc. We really do appreciate it. So my email, lsmith@realagriculture.com. And of course, you can find us across social media at RealAgriculture. All right, let's take a quick break, and I'll be back with more of this Agronomic Monday right after this. It is time for today's product spotlight. Jen Dale, product manager with Proven Canola Seed. What are the top priorities for the Proven brand when you're developing these new canola hybrids?
It really comes down to three things: yield, disease resistance, and the harvestability, flexibility.
What can growers dig into, look for when they're planning their seed purchases this fall and, of course, planning for the spring seeding season?
We have three new hybrids that we're really excited about for this 2026 season. PV662 LCM. It's a Liberty Link multigenic clubroot, ideal for those high-pressure clubroot areas of northern Alberta. Where we move into the NTAC technology, the PV663 LCN combines the clubroot resistance with NTAC. Again, is a great fit for any of those straight-cut acres across Western Canada. And then also PV664 LCN. It's a full-season option with both clubroot and blackleg resistance. Again, with that guarantee of the NTAC that you know that it's going to stand for your harvest needs. The best place to get any of the hybrid information is provenseed.ca.
Soil health is under pressure, but real solutions start below the surface. Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure Humulite. Formulated for performance, backed by consistency, trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth Humulite. Learn more from Mine to Market at blackearth.com.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. It is Monday. It is Agronomic Monday. And do you want to diversify your marketing plan? Try My Grain Exchange's online marketplace. List your grain and connect directly with CGC licensed and verified local buyers. And right now, farmers pay no seller fees on sales before October 31st. MyGrainExchange.com. More buyers, more bids, more ways to sell your grain. All right, as promised, we've got Wheat Pete Johnson joining us here on the line. Pete, how was your weekend?
The weekend was awesome, thanks, Lyndsey. We actually combined soybeans, and we're done soybeans. I think we're done soybeans earlier than we've ever even started before. So it just speaks to the year that we've had. And the yield was, we're not sure yet. The elevator was closed Sunday. We haven't been able to deliver it all, but the yield was definitely not stellar.
Now, Pete, we're September 15th. It does feel very early, as you mentioned, but somewhat that's by design. Maybe not this early. I mean, obviously that's a reflection of the last half of the season. But tell for the people in the back, why do you plan for perhaps shorter season beans or getting them in early, getting them off the field early? Why is it so critical?
Oh, Lyndsey, I'm Wheat Pete. And so that says it all right there, right? So we like to plant our wheat early, and we grow shorter season soybeans so that we can plant wheat early. And this spring, we just happened to have the opportunity to plant soybeans at the end of April. We planted the soybeans on the 29th and 30th of April. We rarely plant April soybeans, but the fields were fit. The cornfields were not fit, so we said, we'll get the wheat in extra early. Of course, then it turned crappy this spring and was really intriguing because the beans that we planted on April the 29th had one really good warm day on April 30th before the weather turned mediocre. And May, for the most part, was kind of cold and backward for the first 10 or so days. And the beans we planted on April 30th did not do as well, which goes back to this concept of you need that first 24 hours of good weather. Now, the first 24 hours on the April 30th beans were not horrible, or we would not have planted them like that. Forecast wasn't that bad, but it was really phenomenally interesting to me to just see that yield difference with one really good day. I forget the temperatures, but they were mid-20s, I think, something like that. And been fascinating on how that difference shook out.
Now, for other growers who maybe for whatever reason are gearing up to put wheat in the ground right now, which, to me seems like pretty exciting if you've got a window to be putting wheat in. What do they need to know? We've got relatively dry conditions here, Pete.
Relatively dry? In fact, we have not had a significant rain for quite some time. And I talked to a neighbor last night, and their comment was, well, this moisture profile to plant wheat into is going to be really interesting. And it is. And in some cases, we may have to plant wheat 3 inches deep. And I haven't really dug down yet to know for sure, but I do know that when we're in a dry period, it tends to stay dry. And if you can find moisture at up to 3 inches deep, lots of people will say, "Oh, Johnson, come on, our coleoptiles don't extend that far, and that wheat will never see the light of day." There are a few varieties, a few places which have coleoptile extension problems, but with the varieties we deal with kind of in the Great Lakes Basin, I've never seen an issue at 3 inches deep. I mean, the drills can't go deeper than 3 inches, and if I went deeper than 3 inches to find moisture, I think that's getting a little extreme. But certainly up to 2.5 or 3 inches deep, I'm going to moisture because it's warm, it's dry, that wheat is going to emerge quickly, and if I put it into moisture, it's going to emerge uniformly, and that will make it more uniform next spring so that I can do the best job with my fusarium fungicide, with my nitrogen timing, with all those things I need to worry about. Whereas if I plant in at an inch, and half of it's in dry dirt and half of it gets moisture, that's an all bad scenario. I mean, it can fix if we get rain right away, but how would you predict that? So I'm a big believer that you plant to moisture if you can, up to 3 inches deep, because that's where you're going to get the most consistent wheat crop.
Now, that's all well and good, Pete, if you've got moisture at 3 inches. There have been scenarios, certainly out west with spring crops, which is a different beast, but there are areas where perhaps, winter wheat is still in the rotation. We can talk about why in a moment, because there's definitely some good news stories out there. But I find it's harder. Okay, so what if there's no moisture at 3 inches? Do I just go the 1.5 inches and wait for rain? What's the call?
Yeah, 100%. You just plant it at 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, somewhere in that range. I mean, as long as the wheat seed is an inch or a little deeper than an inch, the root system is going to be as deep as it ever can be. And that's sort of what we want. So that 1 to 1.5 inches is the sweet spot. And you put it in dry dirt. I've kind of gotten past this concept of wait, because whenever I wait, I mean, it has been so dry, Lyndsey. Once it starts to rain, if Mother Nature decides, oh, we've given you a really dry period, now we need to, get back to average rainfall for 2025. Oh my gosh, she's going to be wet, wet, wet. And Kevin in Essex will be saying, yeah, but Pete, we get those big rainstorms and now I got drowned out spots in my wheat. Well, I don't know, Kevin, I think whether you wait or you don't wait, if it's going to have water ponded in those low areas, you're still going to have drowned out spots in those low areas. So my call, Lyndsey, is plant the wheat into dry soil. The real question there, if I can plant 3 inches deep into moisture, I know what seeding rate to plant. Mm-hmm. If I'm planting 1.25 inches into dust, what seeding rate do I plant? Because it's really the date of emergence that should predict my planting or my seeding rate, right, not the date that I seed that wheat crop. So that becomes a bigger question.
Right. Okay. So let's unpack that a little bit. And for anyone who listens to the Word, I love how there's seasons, Pete. And on the Word every Wednesday, we come back around to some of these key questions at every part in the season. And one of them is, of course, how do you choose your seeding rate based on conditions and calendar? And so this becomes one of those questions, because if it's early and conditions are good, I should plant fewer seeds per acre, right?
100%, because wheat tillers. Right. And if we can get it to tiller in the fall, that's maximum yield. But if we get too many tillers per square foot, if we plant ultra early and we stay at the 1.6 million seeds per acre, because that's what I always do. Well, now I got 1.6 million seeds per acre that instead of making 1 or 2 tillers per plant, they make 5 tillers per plant. And now my wheat is going to lodge 100%, almost guaranteed. Lodging becomes the issue. Plus we can get fall disease. And what we've learned is if we're going to seed well ahead of our optimum date, and everybody should know their optimum date. It's posted on the Go Crops website for Wheat Pete. It is September the 25th. And so Pete's done soybeans, but he probably isn't going to plant wheat. If there's good moisture, I'm going to try to wait till the 18th of September if the weatherman doesn't have a bunch of rain in the forecast. Because if I can get within a week of my optimum date, that's typically maximum yield. But if I'm going to plant ultra early, I really got to cut that seeding rate back. So Steve Sickle tweeted out he was planting wheat. He's crazy early for his area there at Paris, and he was planting 800,000 seeds per acre, which is exactly right in terms of the seeding rate he should choose, because 800,000 versus 1.6 million, that means that seeds have to make at least one more tiller to get to the right number of seeds per head. And ultra early seeding, almost for sure, they're going to make at least that one extra tiller.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And of course, the reverse is true. The later we get, if you're perhaps trying for October 45th or something around those lines, we're bumping our seeding rates, right?
100%, man. If it gets to October 45th, I don't know if you can put too much wheat seed in the ground. You could easily go to 2.5 million and not be putting too much wheat seed in the ground.
Right. Okay. So it's timing, it's conditions, etc. So there you go. Okay. I do want to touch on though, one thing that you mentioned, weed control you didn't mention, and I want to talk about it now. It is very dry, but I don't know. At my farm, the weeds seem to like it just as much, so it's fine. If you do have this window potentially to get weed in at an excellent time, what's the weed control strategy? Do you go across first? Do you wait till it's up? If you've got time, what do you do?
So it depends entirely in terms of what weed species you have and how much disturbance. If you're going to do some tillage, you're saying, "Oh, it's dry. I'm going to till it," which by the way gives away moisture, and I'm not advocating that at all. But if you are going to do tillage, you have to spray first. If you aren't going to do tillage, you can easily plant and come back before the wheat emerges. You just don't spray glyphosate on wheat that's even within a half an inch of the soil surface. So you have about a 3 or 4 day window after you plant the wheat to come back and spray after. Or the other option, Lyndsey, if you could predict, I would actually almost rather, for some weeds like Canada fleabane, wait till the wheat has emerged. And if it's sow thistle, no, you need to spray the sow thistle if you have the chance and you can see those rosettes, you don't have a lot of soybean residue, then spray before you drill the wheat, because that's when you're going to get the maximum uptake on those little sow thistle rosettes or those Canada thistle rosettes. But if you're looking at weeds like Canada fleabane, they continue to emerge all fall long. So does dandelion. And so if I knew I could drive across the field when that wheat had 3 or 4 leaves this fall, I'm actually going to get more control on the fleabane and the dandelion rosettes with something like Infinity FX, or there's other herbicides as well. But you pick a herbicide that has good efficacy on fleabane, on dandelion, and you spray later because you will get more of those seedlings. We don't get much residual out of many of these products. So when you say when to weed control, it just depends entirely on what weed species you're targeting and just how much faith you have that you might be able to drive across that wheat field after the wheat is emerged, like letting more of those weeds emerge after that first rainfall. Because trust me, they are going to emerge after the first rainfall.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with more of Peter Johnson here on RealAg Radio. We'll be back right after this. Maizex Seeds is 100% focused on Canadian farmers because Canadian agriculture deserves a national seed company rooted right here at home. Known for high-performance grain, silage, and grazing corn, Maizex is now bringing soybeans. And, new for 2026, Maizex canola to farmers in Western Canada. Maizex is committed to helping you get more from every acre, field by field. Crush it with Maizex by visiting maizex.com today to connect with your local Maizex Seeds representative.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is a video series that showcases the latest in canola research and production agronomy. Learn from some of the best at your own pace through quick and timely producer-focused videos available on our YouTube channel. The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is the quickest way to keep up to date on all the latest in canola production. Boost your canola IQ with the Canola School, brought to you by BASF, and visit canolaschool.com.
Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more today.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for this Agronomic Monday, Lyndsey Smith. And with deep roots in agriculture, MMP helps farm businesses make confident financial decisions. From planning to growth, their advisors are here to support your success. Learn more at mmp.ca. All right, bringing back in our resident agronomist, Peter Wheat Pete Johnson. Pete, let's talk corn, because we gave wheat its due, although there's maybe some to come back on that one. It's not great out there here in Ontario. The drought has definitely drought to dryness. Some areas were droughted, some areas just dry. Has a lot of producers wondering what the heck they're going to get out of these fields. It's also, I see some silage happening we're going to talk about it tonight. Definitely some challenges on the silage side, some silage gas issues. So let's break it down. What are we facing right now with the corn crop? Maybe let's start with silage and move to grain corn.
So I think what's really interesting with the corn crop is that a lot of producers are surprised at how slowly the corn is developing. And there's a couple of reasons why that could be. We did have some cold nights or cooler nights, not really cold, although there was one cold night. So remember with corn, when it drops below 9 Celsius, we typically lose the next day. We just don't get development of the next day. And we had a whole week of 9 Celsius, but I really wonder, and I don't know this for sure, when they did that research, they had warm temperatures, they dropped the temperature to 9 Celsius, they watched what happened, and they did not repeatedly drop that temperature to 9 Celsius. A lot of plants can adapt. So after about 3 days of sub 9 Celsius temperatures, I really think corn probably adapts and then starts moving ahead, albeit slowly, as opposed to stalling entirely. But we did have one night where it dropped below 4. In fact, to the north, they even got nipped a little bit with frost. And when you drop below 4 Celsius, you actually lose 3 days. And so that may be part of what is going on, is that we're just losing days because of cold night temperatures. But the other thing, because we're seeing this even in areas where, we haven't really had a lot of cold nights, the corn crop progression, given the temperatures we've had, is way slower than you would ever expect. So we would typically, 25-degree days and 15-degree nights or 12-degree nights, even 10-degree nights, we kind of say silage corn should lose 0.5% in moisture per day. Instead, it's been losing about 0.25% in moisture per day. So that's half as fast as we would expect. And in many cases, we're still really struggling with moisture, and heat units are about normal. We're not ahead of normal like we were last year, but we're certainly not behind. Most areas are a little bit ahead. So you would expect it to be progressing faster. But throughout late July, all of August, and most of September now, a lot of areas are just struggling for moisture. And some areas got a shower, enough to actually pump the moisture back up in the silage crop. So now the corn thinks, okay, I got some moisture. I'm going to try to photosynthesize more. And now it went dry again. And it's just like the corn crop is struggling for moisture. It's almost stalled as it's looking for moisture to try to finish that grain fill process, hanging on, as opposed to doing natural maturation, which, if it gets the rain, that's good. The kernels will be heavier. If it doesn't get the rain, eventually it's just going to give up, and we're going to have light kernels. I'm afraid we're going to have light kernels regardless in a lot of the province, but it is way slower than we would generally expect. And as you well know, Lyndsey, the moisture for silage production is critical. So you just have to hang on. They've had bad frost in North Dakota, and I saw some tweets about it was such a severe frost in some areas that corn won't make grain. So now they're talking about silaging it. And frosted corn, you look at the leaves all disappear and you say, oh, that corn's ready for the silo. No. The stalk and the cob are what dictate when that crop is ready for silage. And so you really have to be careful when you're using frosted silage, or even now here in Ontario, you just have to keep checking and go when you can.
That is, I'll put in a plug for tonight's conversation. So the agronomists tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, join us on YouTube, Facebook, X, or realagriculture.com/agronomists. I've got Paul Hermans and Olivia Nuremberg joining me tonight to talk about silage, the silage pass. I know there's plenty of silage that's been made already, but there's also a lot that is just about ready to go. And producers are definitely facing, less than ideal conditions. And there's a lot to think about in putting up the best possible quality. So looking forward to that tonight. I did want to, before we move on to a few other things, Pete, I had a few conversations this weekend about wheat and about how, because of how the weather went this year, the wheat they took off earlier this season will, quote unquote, will make them more money than the corn or beans this year. What say you, sir? Does it warm your heart?
Well, actually, Lyndsey, it warms my heart in terms of them realizing the value of having wheat in the rotation. It does not warm my heart in terms of that means they have poor corn and poor soybeans, and I don't wish ill on anyone. But what it really does do is say, and I mean, it's not just Ontario. I think we're North America, we're agriculture anywhere in the world, and weather is variable. And so if you only have corn, you are at high risk because you have all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. When you grow wheat in the rotation, winter wheat in particular, your grain fill, your growth period is quite different. I mean, the grain fill period for winter wheat in the province of Ontario is primarily June. Well, June is hardly even important to the soybean crop. I mean, we still want good weather for the soybean crop, but if it gets crap weather, which we've proven several times, the soybean crop can do terrible in June and still have a great crop because August weather is what drives soybean yields. So it just again reminds us all that one of the best ways to be a little bit more resilient in agriculture is to have different crops in the rotation. And the more different crops you can have, the better off you are, up to the point where, I mean, you can always get pulled too many ways. You gotta remember the logistics of farming as well. But wheat is incredibly important in the rotation. For the growers that are having poor soybeans and poor corn this year, if they didn't have wheat in the rotation, we have that data and we get more corn and more soybeans, particularly on years like this when we have that wheat in the rotation. And so, yeah, it warms my heart and chills my heart at the same time.
Absolutely. Okay. Risk management. Now we've got a few minutes left. There's some fun things, but not fun, but they're fun because they're colorful. Last week on The Word, you mentioned some growers concerned about purple soybean plants. We now have purple corn. What's going on?
So, Lyndsey, this is just so much fun because I talked about purple soybeans. We are seeing that in the soybean crop, and immediately people think, oh, it's Cercospora because Cercospora causes purpling. It's purple seed stain on the soybeans. We see it at low levels quite frequently, but it's rarely a big problem. Now I have a whole field that looks purple. Oh my gosh, the Cercospora is going to wipe me out. No, it hasn't been Cercospora weather. It's very rare that you would see a whole field of Cercospora. Plus, if it was Cercospora, the leaves would be very deep purple and very leathery, and that's not what we're seeing. So similarly, I said we didn't see it in corn yet because the corn wasn't quite mature. And then the very day we release the word, the next morning I get shipped pictures from a grower of purple corn. Have a nice day, Wheat Pete. So it's just all about source sync. And when the rains came, and if you get into a situation where you have no rain, and so you don't set a very big cob, you don't set many pods in the soybean plant, and then you get rain, well, now all of a sudden the soybean plant says photosynthesize, photosynthesize, photosynthesize. So does the corn plant. Like, let's make photosynthesis. Let's fill the seeds so we can germinate and we can procreate and do all the things we want to do. And we get too much photosynthate. And what happens when we get too much photosynthate? It actually goes toxic in the plant. And so the plant has developed a protection mechanism where it turns photosynthate, excess photosynthate, into anthocyanin. Anthocyanin is purple. Some varieties certainly are more prone to doing that than other varieties, but the purple corn, the purple soybeans is almost for sure just we should have had more beans to fill. We should have had more kernels to fill. And the purple corn that was sent to me, the grower said it's basically black layered. It's very close to black layer. So we didn't have the place to put that excess photosynthate, and that's why it goes purple.
And which is fascinating to me because, of course, we have this conversation in the spring often with the wheat crop when we don't have the root growth necessarily to make use of maybe a nice warm day that comes along. And we see it in the wheat crop sometimes.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing.
Yep. Very. Whenever we see purple, people always think of something else first, but I don't know. In my career, probably 90% of the time I see purpling in any crop. It's because of a source-sink relationship out of balance. Okay,
there we go. We're going to leave it there. Pete, thank you so much for joining me here on RealAg Radio. It's been a couple weeks, so glad to have you back. And I guess, like, if you don't have wheat to put in for a couple days, you're just chilling. I mean, what could keep you busy?
Well, first off, today, Lyndsey, I have to clean up the combine.
Okay. All right.
There is always something to do.
There is. Absolutely. Okay. All right, Pete, thank you so much for joining me here on the show. We'll talk to you again soon.
Super. Thanks for having me, Lyndsey. Have a great week.
All right. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
At Proven Seed, we know that farming in Western Canada doesn't just teach us, it shapes us. Here we face challenges with resilience, innovation, and grit born from decades of experience. We battle the conditions again and again because growing crops here isn't just what we do, it's who we are. We're raised to adapt just like you, with varieties grown specifically for your local conditions. Visit provenseed.ca/raised to adapt to hear our story.
Whether you're running a farm operation, in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, operating a company in agri-food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag and food together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Niagara Falls on November 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register. Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. This segment of Agronomic Monday is brought to you by The Dirt. From nutrient management to the latest weather, market, and ag trends, The Dirt, an economics podcast, is your place for farm-smart topics to boost your profitability. Join Mike Howell on Season 4 of The Dirt podcast, available now at nutrient-economics, that's economics with a K.com.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin. Welcome to the Soybean School. Today, we're going to take a look at some key micronutrients, including boron and zinc, and what happens when you have too little or too much of those micros. On this episode, we're joined by OMAFA soybean specialist Horst Bohner and University of Guelph researcher Dr. Hugh Earl as they explore a rather unique soybean research plot. Here, Earl is using potted soybean plants and fertigation to help establish optimal values for micronutrients like boron in soybean fields.
Hugh, it's great to be with you here today. Usually we're standing in the field when we're looking at soybeans, and here you've got this beautiful pot study. What in the world are you working on here?
Yeah, it's kind of a weird thing, isn't it, growing soybean in pots outdoors. So what we're looking at here is a hydroponic system. So the plants are growing in sand, quartz sand, and they're being fed some of their nutrients, or macronutrients, through a fertigation system. So you can see we grow these nice, big, beautiful plants. And the reason we're doing this is we want to have, as much as possible, complete control over what nutrients the plants are receiving. So
this is the untreated check. This has got everything.
Yeah, this row here, this is the best we can do. So they're getting all the macronutrients and all their micronutrients.
Yeah, beautiful.
So the idea here is that every plant or every row here is getting all the macronutrients right through the fertigation system. So they're getting nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and also those kind of middle ones. We sometimes call them mesonutrients, right? So your magnesium, sulfur, calcium. They're all supplied equally to every row. This project is about looking at the effects of the micronutrients. So those things that the plants need in really, really small quantities. So there's some they need hardly any at all, like molybdenum, cobalt, copper. But there's others they need in slightly larger quantities, but still very small. So iron, manganese, zinc, and boron. So each one of these rows represents a different treatment where they're getting all the macronutrients, but we've excluded one of the micronutrients, or in some cases applied the micronutrients in different levels, so you can see the responses.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we do have some really nice visual symptoms here. Typically in the field in Ontario, we see manganese, which you brought up, and we've got a picture of it here in the video. Pretty clear symptomology, right? That intraveinal chlorosis. But this one right here, what's going on? What are we missing here?
So this is one of the micronutrients in this system we seem to have the most control over. This is boron, and this is boron deficiency. So we haven't applied any boron at all whatsoever. That doesn't mean there's no boron. There might be a little bit in the soil, but you can see they're very deficient. The plants are very small. The leaves are very, if you feel them, they're very thick and tough. They haven't expanded normally. The internodes of the plants are very compacted, so the plants are very short. This is a really extreme symptomology, and it's actually quite amazing when you think about it. All we've done is excluded that one micronutrient, and you go from this scenario to this scenario just with the boron deficiency. So this one we got really good control over, and we actually have treatments where we have different levels of boron that we've applied every week. So we're getting tissue, leaf tissue boron levels, and we should be able to get like a response curve. What's the right sort of leaf tissue content of boron you need to not have any deficiency or toxicity.
Well, we do get asked by growers, right? Because some crops like cotton, or in Canada here canola, are more responsive to boron, and we know it has a lot to do with flowering, pod set. You already mentioned that cell wall, but some growers have speculated that maybe part of the reason soybeans abort so many flowers is because we don't have enough boron. Right?
Yeah,
it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, and the problem is it's really hard to research that sort of thing because, first of all, you got to find like a field that's sufficiently boron deficient, and have that nice uniform symptomology. So conceivably, in a system like this, you can actually, it's only boron because everything else is the same, right? We're only controlling boron. So you can get those different levels of boron and be confident that any effect you see, say on flowering or pod set or any of those things you're interested in, are due to the boron and nothing else. So that's one of the advantages of a system like this.
It's really cool. So you brought up already this issue of toxicity. And we know that soybeans can be sensitive, all crops can be sensitive, but I think it's especially true for soybeans. They can be sensitive to boron toxicity. So when someone says, how much boron can I apply in a foliar feeding, that depends on heat, right? How hot it is, and a bunch of factors. But what are you doing in this row?
Yeah, so this is our highest boron application rate. Remember, it's soil applied. So this isn't like a foliar burn or anything like that. But we had seen this before in some controlled environment work, in a greenhouse type scenario. So you see the symptomology where it starts to turn just a little bit yellow on the margins, not quite in the same pattern you see for like a potassium deficiency. It's a little bit different. And then eventually, if it's severe enough, those chlorotic regions, the yellow regions, will turn necrotic, so brown dead tissue in those areas. It's a pretty distinct symptomology. It always starts in the lower leaves, and if it's severe enough, it'll move right up through the canopy, and you can actually get a scenario where every leaf in the canopy has this necrosis to it caused by boron toxicity. So you can see it's completely different from boron deficiency. The symptomology is very strange. I encountered this, as I said, in past research, didn't recognize the symptoms, posted it online. Who knows what this is? What's going on with my soybean plants? Nobody has a clue, right? So one of the main things we're trying to do in this work is to create a scenario where we know for sure it's boron because we did it, right? And then get really good video, like photographic documentation, so that we'll have this, sort of nice catalog of photographs and things when you're trying to diagnose micronutrient issues.
And one of the key components of this project is to reestablish for Ontario growers the critical values for some of these micronutrients, because we don't actually have really good ones or modern ones. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's estimates you can find online of what the sort of optimum values are for micronutrients, but there's not a whole pile of data behind some of those numbers. So again, because it's from field work, we saw it looks like a deficiency. What was the tissue test level in that case, and you try to put all this evidence together. This is a more of a deliberate way, like of establishing different tissue test levels and seeing how that relates to growth and yield and all the things that we're interested in.
So, Hugh, you brought up tissue testing, which I think is perfect with respect to some of these micros. The only work that we did recently in fields is we applied a granular product that had some boron in it, and we didn't do tissue testing. We just thought, let's just try it along with potassium, and on an average field, we didn't see anything, right?
Yep.
So now, of course, you would say, well, let's do a tissue test in the future. And I think that is really the story of boron. It's site-specific. It's not widespread across Ontario. Sandy soils, maybe high pH, specific scenarios. Awesome. Let's wrap that up on boron and move on to another one. What do we have here?
Yeah, so this one is a little bit of a surprise for us. This isn't a micronutrient that we thought we'd have a lot of control over in this system. We thought we'd do great with iron, looking at the soil test values for iron, and it turns out I haven't seen any iron symptoms yet, so it hasn't worked so well. This one I thought we'd have, based on the soil test, less opportunity, but it's turned out really well. This is zinc deficiency, is what you're looking at here. So like a lot of the micronutrients, you get that typical sort of intervenoclerosis.
Yeah.
So that's part of the
But
symptomology.
it's neat, eh? It's a little different than that original picture we showed of MN. It's not quite the same. It's more subtle.
It's more modeling than intervenoclerosis. I agree with that. Now, one always wonders though, like are these symptoms variety specific too, right? So not every variety will show it exactly the same way. But anyway, the other thing with zinc is when it really gets bad enough, you'll start to see the kind of brown patches again, that necrosis that occurs sort of various places, sort of randomly across the leaves. So anyway, if you compare this to the controls again, it's clear. Like you just walk these plots, every time there's a zinc deficient plot, like it's absolute standout. You can really see it. So I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think zinc is, of the micronutrients, none of which are really common deficiencies. It is one of the more common ones.
I think so, yes. Although to your point, in soybeans, it's very rare that we actually see only zinc. Like often with these micros or other nutrients, there's a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah. It's caused by soil pH or something that's affecting uptake of a number of different nutrients simultaneously.
Or really dry soils, right? Yeah, that's right. The other thing I've noticed on that front is, and a few times, is if someone has really poured on the phosphorus, right, for whatever reason, there is a bit of an interaction there, and then you can have some zinc deficiency.
Yeah, and this is for all of these micronutrients. I think there's always complexity to it, and there's a lot of things that interact, and so it's not a simple thing. That's another nice thing about a system like this. At least we know we know what it was caused by. It wasn't water, wasn't phosphorus, wasn't soil pH. It's zinc.
We are going to take a quick break here from RealAg Radio on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM, and we'll be back with more of Agronomic Monday right after this. Protect your anhydrous ammonia application earlier than normal this fall. Defend against potential losses and protect your bottom line with new Centuro A-Pro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Patented active ingredient pronitridine offers agronomically effective protection where it matters most, below ground. The new concentrated formulation lowers application rates. Start early with Centuro A-Pro as part of your nitrogen management plan. Contact your local retailer or visit centuro.ca for more information today.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. Don't miss out. The Prairie Oak Growers AGM is happening Wednesday, December 3rd in Saskatoon. A full day of expert speakers, research and insights, capped off with keynote Simon Keith and evening entertainment by YouTube sensation, the Peterson Farm Brothers. Day passes start at $40. Register today at poga.ca. That's POGA.ca. We hop now to this conversation between Amber Bell and Jack Payne, agronomist out of Southern Alberta, to talk about fall soil sampling and fertility planning.
So, Amber, you know what's happened this year. I mean, moisture across the prairies was, we had places that had probably less than 4 to 5 inches of rain. South of here, we had areas that had over 15 inches of rain. So, I mean, it's just a situation of the haves and have-nots. And then if you're lucky, you're sort of in between just right. So it's led us, I guess, into a situation where I'm predicting where we're going to be going, because we're just getting the crops off now. Mm-hmm. We won't be long till we're into the fields, soil sampling, and looking and planning for next year. So if you look at the two extremes, if you look at eastern Alberta and into Saskatchewan, where they had some single-digit yields. I'm sorry, but there were some areas that took it on the chin again. Single-digit yields. So they're going to be in a situation again, which they're probably getting, I hate to say it, used to, where you're going to have some nutrient carryover. Because if you did not remove those nutrients from the field, there's probably a pretty good chance there's some nutrient carryover. Mm-hmm. So it's important to assess what you've got still in the ground, because that's going to have a big impact on next spring's fertilizer program, right? So if you got lots of nutrients still in the ground, good news is you don't have to apply maybe as much next year for next year's crop. On the other hand, you go to the other extreme where we had areas where we had 15 inches or more of rain. Now, well, first of all, we're going to have monster crops like this. And if you look at a canola crop, if you look at a 60, 70 bushel canola crop, it's going to remove about 120 to 125 pounds of nitrogen just in the seed. It's going to remove 55 to 65 pounds of phosphate per acre in the seed. So you're removing some pretty good chunks of nutrients out of the soil just in harvest. The other aspect that we had, though, is the monsoon season that we had through July and August, where we got those heavy deluges of rain, like some storms where they were getting 2 and 3 inches at one time. Driving around, I saw these fields. I saw fields where there was standing water. What you're going to have is probably nitrogen leaching, where you're going to have some of that nitrate would have been pushed down through the soil profile because of that heavy amount of moisture and heavy amount of rain in a quick burst. Or the other thing that you're going to run into is areas where the water was ponding and where the soil was saturated. We probably had denitrification occurring. And we probably haven't had, for southern Alberta, issues with denitrification for several years. But I am pretty sure in July, when you've got those heavy deluges of rain and standing water, there would have been some denitrification. So couple the two together, guys in the east that had some rough going with their crops and low yields probably have a carryover. I'm going to go out on a limb, but I'm expecting if you start sampling some of these fields, you're going to find that the nutrient bank is going to be withdrawn quite low. That's my guess. That's what I'm going to predict, because the nutrients have gone somewhere. And crop removal, first of all, for some of these crops, I'm seeing some monster crops. There's going to be significant crop nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur removal. So.
Right. And how deep are you recommending to sample?
Well, I've always said, from a perspective of soil sampling, we want to sample 0 to 6 because that's important, because that's where our organic matter is. That's the most active part of the soil. But we also need to assess what's farther down, because nitrate and sulfate are mobile nutrients. Also, chloride is another mobile nutrient. And if you've got heavy moisture and leaching, some of those nutrients may be pushed farther down. So if you're only sampling shallow, 0 to 6, you're totally missing what may be down at 18 inches, maybe missing what's down at 24 inches. So I've always been a proponent of multiple depth sampling, 0 to 6, 6 to 12, if you're using a hand probe kind of thing, if you can only get down a foot. If you're able to get down to 24 inches, and with a Dutch auger like this, getting down 24 inches actually is not that difficult. Or if you've got a truck mount probe, getting down 24 inches isn't difficult at all. I would recommend 0 to 6 and 6 to 24.
Can the plant still access the nutrients if they're past that deeper than that 6 inches?
Yes. As long as there is moisture, crops will continue to root down. They'll only stop going downward, one, if they encounter hard pan, like a compacted layer, or if they encounter dry soil, because roots will never go through dry soil. So when you've got moisture going down, like I say, our soil profile, when you look at a normal soil, a good loam would hold about 2 to 2.5 inches of plant available water per foot of depth. So if you've got a 3-foot profile, you've got maybe 6 to 7 inches of stored soil water. So if you got 15 inches of rain, that means that additional moisture either had to go down or ran off. But roots will continue to grow down. The effective rooting depth of canola, believe it or not, is 1 meter. That taproot will continue down. As long as there's moisture, it will go down to 1 meter. So the crops will access that deeper leach nutrient reserve if it's down there. And so sometimes, again, you need to take that into account when you're building your fertilizer budget and your fertilizer recommendation. So I'll give you an example. If there was a lot of nitrate that was leached down, let's say in the 18 to 24 inch depth, and if you don't sample down there and don't take that into account, let's say there's 80 pounds of nitrogen down at that deep depth. If you're fertilizing your crop for normal target yield, you may be over-fertilizing. And then come July, when the crop gets down there and hits that 80 pounds of nitrogen, all of a sudden it gets a huge nitrogen kick. And what does the crop do? It responds to it. Vegetative growth responds. It goes into that vegetative stage, and it lodges, falls over. Right. And I know lots of growers they just want to avoid lodging because it's such a huge issue. And so again, understanding what's down in that subsoil is really key to understand your fertilizer budget and what you need to apply. So again, that you don't over apply and end up then, let's say next year, if we've got really good growing conditions again, with a crop lodging.
Right.
The other aspect of too much nitrogen, again, is the crop will remain vegetative, and then that sort of delays the maturity. So, yeah.
Which is not a good thing on certain years.
No, that's right.
So if you were to give growers 3 tips for soil sampling in the fall, what would they be?
3 tips. Multiple depths. Again, it's their choice, or if they have somebody that does the custom sampling for them with a soil sample truck. At least 2 depths. If you're doing a hand probe, like I say, some people only do 6 to 12. Hey, if that's okay, if that's all you can get, great. It's better than just a 0 to 6. So multiple depth sampling. The other thing is, again, we can start sampling. The old school was we didn't start soil sampling till way into the late fall because we needed the soils to cool down. A couple of things that they found, there's some work that was done in Manitoba found that basically we could start sampling a little bit sooner than that. We didn't have to wait until late fall for sampling. The other thing is you got to remember logistics. We've got large farms. You've got some very large farms, and if they're soil sampling, if we, push back soil sampling, push it back to a very narrow window, we just don't have enough capability to get all those samples processed. So my advice is don't wait for late fall for soil sampling. You know what? Getting in the next couple of weeks when the soil cools down, get sampling, get out there and get it done. And I think the other thing is something I always watch for. We're seeing changes in soil quality, and we're seeing one of the things we're going to see this year with the heavy rain that we had this summer. That's going to recharge some of the groundwater, and I dare say that next year, we may see some increased salinity levels. So again, I'm always looking at soil quality, not just for nutrient management, but I'm also looking at soil quality. So get a soil test done and start looking at things like organic matter, pH, soil salinity, and see how that might enter into your crop planning. Again, legumes typically don't like saline soils, so if you're starting your salt levels start to increase, you might want to change your crop plan and not put lentils or peas on that particular field.
All right, we're going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much to Jack Payne, Amber Bell, Bern Tobin, Horst Bohner, Dr. Hugh Earl, and of course, Peter Repeat Johnson for joining me today on the show. If you've got feedback, zip me an email, lsmith@realagriculture.com, or find us, of course, across social media. I'll be back for the Issues panel on Friday. Have a great week. Cheers, everybody.